Hey, welcome everybody. Seth and Sean Sports Radio here on StreamYard. Yep, that's where we are, StreamYard. And Seth is about to join us, and we have a good amount to talk about today. I mean, what else could we talk about? Number one is the fact that Tom Brady retires. Ding dong, the witch is dead. The wicked witch. Ding dong, the wicked witch is dead. Oh, hail the Mario, sing it high, sing it low.
How do you know all the words to this?
Look, when you don't have cable growing up, you seem to watch a lot of the same movies over and over and over again. So, Wizard of Oz is one of those movies. I saw the Munchkin kill himself. I mean, it happened. But anyway, so Seth and Sean Sports Radio. I guess we're sports TV, we're sports podcast, we're sports something. Yep. Here on StreamYard, I'm Sean Palmer. That's Seth Kamens. Hey, I got it right the first time today. That's Seth Kamens. Seth, you can find at S. Kamens, myself at SU Lawyer 2001, and you can find us on Facebook. And look, there's a Super Bowl next week, and we're not going to talk about it at all. That's the great part. We'll talk about it next week. Number one, the Washington Commanders. Now, you had a year to think about this. And the only thing that I can think about is go commies. Like, that's the only thing. I mean, could somebody not have thought about that? Like, so the Nationals are called the Nats, and you know the Commanders are just going to be called the commies. I mean, come on. You're in the nation's capital, and you're saying it's the communists. Like, I mean, look, it's Daniel Snyder, so anything is possible. But you had a year.
Anything is possible?
Anything is possible with Daniel Snyder, but a year, and you come up with this. Now, I got to tell you, the red uniform looks like a high school uniform. I'm not sure if you've seen it. Have you seen it?
I have not. I'm sure I can go online.
So I'm gonna bring it up. Hold on, I'll bring it up on. Let me see if I can.
Is this really what we're opening with?
This is what we're opening with. Okay. So, courtesy of ESPN, that is the red uniform right there.
I don't mind it.
It's a mesh uniform that says Commanders on top, right there. Right there. And then the black uniform doesn't have anything except Commanders on the corner, which I really like.
It looks like the Steelers.
I like the black one. And then the white one has Washington across the front, which I like as well with the stripes on the side. So if you just took away the red one, which looks like a high school uniform made of mesh, I'm good with the black and I'm good with the white. The red, they wanted to make a uniform a name that they could still use the uniform. And that's what they did with the burgundy and gold. Success. But Commanders goes like the Giants. It's like one of those generic names that means absolutely nothing to me. You could have done a lot better for me.
I would have left it as is.
What, the Washington football team?
I do.
Yeah, I mean, look, it doesn't matter what you name the team.
You still haven't won in 25 years. So.
Right. It's all about how you win. It's whether you – what is that? That was interesting.
I don't know what you're talking about.
I was looking for if there was an origin of this. I'm looking at – okay. So according to ESPN, after 87 years with its former name and 2 years as the Washington football team, the franchise made the change to the Commanders. In part because the team believes the name reflects the gravitas and the weight of a franchise about to turn 90. Now, my take is it the gravitas and the weight that it's about to turn 100 in 10 years? Like, it's not like you call the team the 2022s, because in 10 years, it's not going to matter anyway. That's why you don't buy T-shirts with years on, because then you can't wear them after that year. Yeah, it boggles my mind. Some of the names are actually really well done. The Giants are not one of them, by the way. As the Mariners,
that's the biggest problem the Giants have right now.
Well, you want to get into the bigger problem that the Giants have right now?
Probably, I think that's kind of what we're going to probably talk about. I don't know about. Well, I mean, look, I don't think we'll talk about it. It's certainly not the clearest thing in the world.
No, it's not. But so the Washington team gets the Commanders. I don't know. Tom Brady has retired. We should probably talk a little bit about that. And it's funny how much Tom Brady really rewrote the record book. Like I didn't realize. And you had said this to me years ago, and I got to pull this up. Pro Football Talk, which you know is one of my go tos, did a really succinct a job of saying how much he has rewritten the record book. So let me see if I can find that. Here we go, rewritten the record book. So let's see. So the most passes attempted, he's got 11,000. Breeze is second with 10,5. But it's more the postseason than it is even the regular season, Seth. Most games, Brady's played in 47. Number 2 is Vinatieri with 32. Like, just think about that. That's 4 years of full playoff seasons in addition.
He's a kicker.
Yeah.
I think the better question who's the second most from a quarterback standpoint.
How about this one? Most games winning as a quarterback. Brady's got 35. You want to take a guess at who number 2 is? This is a good game that we could play. Who's number 2?
Roethlisberger?
Joe Montana with 16.
12?
Not even half. Not even half. Most passes attempted, Brady threw 1,855. Who's number 2?
I'll stick with my Roethlisberger or Breeze.
So it's Manning with just over 1,000. So that's 800 more pass attempts. Also, 500 more completions. The most yards gained, 13,000 for Brady. Next is Peyton Manning with 7,000.
Yeah.
Most yards gained, well, the games don't matter, like individual games. Most 300-yard passing. Brady has 18. Peyton Manning has 9. Super Bowl records. Brady has played in 10. You want to know who number 2 is?
Is it Herb Adderley?
Not a kicker. That's not a kicker.
Is it Herb Adderley?
It's Mike Lodish with 6.
Who the hell is Mike Lodish?
The long snapper for some team. I mean, most passes attempted in a Super Bowl. Brady's thrown 421. Peyton Manning's thrown 155. Like, these are records that, Seth, I don't know if they could ever be broken. I mean, the amount of actual playing time in a Super Bowl. Remember, Brady played in 10 Super Bowls in 22 years.
Yeah, and to give you a perspective of the difficulty of that, I mean, look at Mahomes right now. You know, Pat Mahomes has been on the most dominant 4-year run, one of the most dominant 4-year runs in history. 2 Super Bowls, he's going to win 1.
Yeah. And we can talk about those games, which I think are important to talk about, even if we don't hit on our predictions for the Super Bowl.
Yeah, we can talk. I think we got to talk about everything else first, though.
Okay, you lead the way because I am interested in your perception here.
Well, I think you split this into 2 things.
Okay.
As everyone knows, Brian Flores has sued the NFL for racist hiring practices, considers the New York interview and the Denver interview in 19 a sham. And then on the other side, he's accused Chris Greer and Stephen Ross of paying him to tank games. Hugh Jackson has also accused Cleveland of doing the same. I think we start with the tanking. I think that's a little bit more clear. I'm not saying from a legal standpoint whether it can be proven or not. I know that I saw on Twitter that that apparently there's some evidence on the Hugh part.
Yep.
If that can be proven, look, you can't make billionaires do anything. The only thing you can do is make them sell the team. That's all I got.
Oh, that's
it.
Making them do something.
If you pretty much in college, if you're tanking in college or you're tanking the pros for all intents and purposes, you're screwing with people's professions. You're screwing with people's careers.
I'll go another step forward, Seth. You're screwing with gambling.
Yep.
And that's a federal crime.
Yep.
I mean, again, I use Pro Football Talk as a reference, but and they brought up a very interesting point today, is that Stephen Ross and Jim Haslam could be prosecuted for violating the Sports Bribery Act.
Yeah.
Do I think that'll happen? No, of course not.
No, but do you think there's a chance they will be forced to sell the team?
Absolutely. I said this yesterday. I said Stephen Ross just lost his team.
Yeah.
What he did absolutely lost his team, because the one thing that owners don't want to do, and we've seen this in the St. Louis case, we'll see this again in the San Diego case, is they want to be private. It's an exclusive club. We don't want you in our business. We don't want you knowing what our emails said. We don't want this, that, and the other thing. It's 30 or 32 members, and that's it. We don't want you in our club. Well, this lawsuit is going to bring people into their club and say, let's audit everything that this club did. And they want no part of that. These guys are, I think, first of all, Haslam should have been forced to sell the team a long time ago based on what he did with Flying J and the kickbacks that he took there. And I'm not sure if you're aware of what
I know a little bit, but it's not football related, so I'm not sure that
correct.
Correct.
It wasn't football related. You're absolutely right. But this,
and again, are we going into a morality clause? Now, again, a morality clause when it impacts your sport is one thing. A morality clause, for the sake of a morality clause, I don't think has any impact.
That's true. But this reeks like of Donald Sterling. Like this reeks of what's going to happen.
And I mean, let's be honest here. The Miami Dolphins are going to go for $5 billion.
Well, so are the Denver Broncos.
Who are on sale anyway. And if Cleveland is forced to sell, they'll go for $4. They're not going to go for as much as Miami, but they'll go for, I mean, it's a relative punishment is probably the best way to put it, because you can't find a billionaire.
Crap ton of money. Like, you are going to make oogles of money.
Right. Well, that's what I'm saying, is you can't find billionaires. It doesn't. What are you going to find them? It doesn't work. You can't take away. I mean, you can take away draft picks, but all that really does is impact the players and the coach, because the owner's still making the same money.
Yep.
Assuming that the games are going to be sold out. So that doesn't impact.
And they don't look, at the end of the day, NFL teams, Major League Sports franchises don't make money on the gate.
No.
You said based on them selling out. Doesn't matter.
Yeah, it's de minimis. What I'm saying is it's a de minimis impact. Like, they make their money off of off the contracts, off the TV contracts.
Correct.
Which, based on 49 million people watching on Sunday, they're not going anywhere.
Nope.
That, I think, is now Goodell. The other issue is Goodell works for the owners. I mean, he is not Adam Silver, who works for the owners, but has shown a backbone on a lot of when necessitated.
Correct.
I'm not sure Goodell really ever has, and I think the owners are going to be the ones who are going to dictate whether not Goodell. I don't think Goodell's unilaterally going to pull what Silver did with Sterling.
No, I think what will happen is much like it did with St. Louis, is that it depends on how far the rabbit hole this actually goes. And what type of look, if this is no way going to court, it's not happening. I'm not quite sure where it will go, but it will not go to court. Like, I cannot see how Brian Flores, I think there'll be changes. Brian Flores has asked for changes. I think there'll be changes made, even if they're on the surface, because I don't think you can force guys to hire other people. I don't think you're going to get specific performance. I think that's a legal term. Sorry, guys. It means enforcement of a specific act, such as you must hire an African-American or black head coach, or you must do this, or you must do that. These are business.
Billionaires are not mandated to.
Well, and you could force them to interview, which is what this all stems from.
And look, they were incentivized. They've been incentivized by hiring to get draft picks, and I'm not sure if that's correct or insulting, to be perfectly honest.
Well, and you and I discussed this yesterday. This is the equivalent of affirmative action.
Yeah.
That's what this is. And look, I don't have an opinion one way or another on affirmative action. I don't have an opinion one way or another on the Rooney Rule because, quite frankly, it doesn't affect me, and it never will. Right? I mean, if I'm qualified at that point, which I never will be qualified to be an NFL coach, but let's say I am, I'm not impacted by the Rooney Rule. The only impact I would ever have is if I was going against somebody like a Mike Tomlin that got an interview based on the Rooney Rule and I lost the job. That would be the only way that I would ever be impacted. But truth be told, if there's somebody that is better than me at that job, they should get the job, whether they are black, white, Indian, Mexican, any other race that there is out there.
Agreed.
If you are the best person for the job, you should get the job. Period. How you got the interview, quite frankly, is irrelevant to me. If you get the job based on nefarious ways, that's when I have a problem. But an interview, you should get the interview. And for those people that, and this happens in every profession, right? Those people that get interviews based on connections or get interviews based on, hey, I saw this guy at my gym, or I am a country club member with him, or something, or her, or something along those lines. I will never have a problem going against the best. That you should, if you are the best, you shouldn't have a problem going against the best. So if that's how they get the interview, that's great. If that's how they get the job, well, that's where I kind of draw the line on that. You probably shouldn't be getting the job based on a connection. But
no, you get in the door based on it, but you don't get the job or keep a job. That's based on merit. That should be based on meritocracy.
Correct. So the fact that, look, the Rooney Rule has been championed, quite frankly, as the Mike Tomlin rule, right? I mean, at the end of the day, he's pretty much the only one that got a job based on just the idea of being interviewed, right? I mean, everybody else was you had interviews, but it wasn't necessarily you got. I don't remember anybody that necessarily got the job because of the Rooney.
No. Now, people may have come into play a little because of the Tomlin rule, the Rooney Rule, exactly. And then a year or two later gotten a position.
Right. Byron Leftwich is going to get a head coaching job at some point.
It's a question if he wants it this year or not.
Right.
Which now with Brady retiring in Jackson and him bringing in Adrian Wilson as the GM in Jacksonville, I kind of see it as an inevitability.
Well, we said that at the beginning too, that we thought it was an inevitability, but the concept of that getting yourself in front, this is why whenever I mentor somebody, and I believe you do the same thing too, you have the opportunity to interview, you absolutely interview all the time. Mm-hmm. Even if you're only quasi interested in the job, because you never know where that connection will lead. And I think that's more what the Rooney Rule was more geared towards, was getting you in front of people, not necessarily getting you the job.
Right.
But we see here, and this is we're going to go back and forth between hiring and this Brian Flores, but where is Eric Bieniemy in all this? Like, I seriously, Seth, I'm incredulous as to the fact that this guy didn't even get an interview this year.
I don't know if it's the stuff that happened years ago, where there were some nefarious things. I don't want to say domestic violence. I think it was domestic violence. You can look it up.
I will, because I don't think I've heard that. Okay.
But it is obviously illogical that I don't know if he does an interview. I don't know if he does an interview well. I don't know if he's not organized. I don't know. I can't imagine it's not because he calls it. It doesn't make sense that the offensive coordinator on the best offense football for the last 4 years in a generation where all the hirings are offensive based are.
So let me just get the so-called rap sheet, right? According to the South Florida Sun Sentinel, Colorado police arrested the enemy and a teammate following a bar fight. That was in 1998. You and I graduated college that year.
Yeah, it's meaningless.
According to the Orlando Sentinel, he pleaded no contest for shoving a firefighter July 4th, 1990. Again, he was a college student. Colorado police once again arrested Bieniemy in the NFL in 1993. This is where you probably got it. Reported that Bieniemy allegedly grabbed a female parking attendant by the neck and threatened her. The University of Colorado banned Bieniemy from its campus for 1 year based on that. Then he had a DUI charge in 2001. That was the year I graduated law school, which is 18 years ago.
That to me is meaningless.
And he was also linked that he used Colorado's football program used alcohol and sex to lure recruits. Linked to allegations that the Colorado football program.
That may preclude a college hiring. It's not going to preclude a professional.
Look, there's one instance here, right? And one instance to me, which is the grabbing the female parking attendant in 1993. And that is not to state that is not a serious allegation. It certainly is. There was, it's an alleged incident. There is no disposition other than the banning of Bieniemy from campus. 1993 was a very, very long time ago.
Yeah,
that's not to say that people are not getting punished for things that happened 20 to 25 years ago, because we know in the last year nothing could be further from the truth. That's happening.
Yeah, but I don't think that should preclude you from a head coaching job. No, I was talking with a buddy of mine who's a big Broncos fan, and he is incredulous that Nathaniel Hackett got a job and not Eric Bieniemy wasn't even interviewed. Now, again, part of the problem is it's hard to interview people who are still coaching which does make things a little bit more convoluted. But Hackett, other than being Aaron Rodgers' sidekick, his numbers, he's got a lot of experience, but I don't think the teams have been very good.
Yeah, look, Nathaniel Hackett was the offensive coordinator with the Bills, then with the Jaguars, and then with the Packers. And now, and by the way, he was also passing game coordinator for the Syracuse Orange in 2010.
Oh, that makes all the difference.
And the offensive coordinator in 2011, 2012. Look, that was the Eric Dungy year. So, it does make a little bit of difference. He did a good job with them. But,
right.
He's never called plays. Not once.
Well, either does Bieniemy.
I'm just saying, he's never called plays. So, let's talk about Hackett, though. Hackett going to the Broncos, your friend is incredulous for what reason other than Bieniemy was not – there have been a lot of changes in the coaching ranks this past week. We can jump on each one of them. Hackett, I don't see it. Look, this is the way of the future, right? You hire the wonder kind and you hope he pans out, Sean McVay and Matt LaFleur.
Right. I think he doesn't see him as a wonder kind. I think he sees him as a beneficiary of Aaron Rodgers, of working with Aaron Rodgers. And if they can trade for Aaron Rodgers, then to be honest, I think that was what some of this is predicated on. I don't think Hackett was a massive candidate anywhere else. Maybe and I think the idea was, especially a team like Denver, who was a quarterback away from being really interesting. Maybe that's what the bill of goods he sold. But I think, as you said,
let's put Aaron Rodgers in the AFC East, AFC West, because that doesn't change the dynamic of that division at all.
Yeah, your worst quarterback is Derek Carr. That says quite a bit.
With a new coach that has had Tom Brady for 20 years. So, look, Derek Carr is not a bad quarterback. He's one of the top 10 to 12 quarterbacks in the NFL right now, if not higher than that. Certainly you and I have discussed this. He's an underrated quarterback.
He is, because the team has not been overly successful, which has not been really his fault.
Correct. So unfortunately, your Giants do not get Ken Dorsey. I'm sorry to hear that.
It's okay.
He stays with Buffalo, which I kind of anticipated was going to happen.
Yeah.
Right? I mean, Dabble goes. Chicago gets Matt Eberflus. Eberflus.
Yeah, the defensive coordinator from Indianapolis.
And they signed Luke Getsy as the offensive coordinator, who was the QB coach passing game coordinator for the Packers. Again, perhaps riding a little bit of Rodgers' coattails all the way to Chicago. I don't like either one of these moves. I think both of these moves are problematic, at least because Chicago needs offense, not defense.
Yeah, I agree. I was surprised. I thought a Jim Caldwell would have made sense. I thought a Pep Hamilton may have made sense. I was, Indianapolis' defense was not fantastic last year. I mean, the team they blew up the last couple of games, not making the playoffs. I'm not sure why you wouldn't get it. Because, I mean, we've talked about this, and one of the reasons I was so happy the Giants got Dable was for some reason they didn't interview any other offensive coordinators.
Right.
Leslie Frazier, Brian Flores, Patrick Graham, all would have been perfectly competent as a head coach. The problem is if you have any offensive coordinator worth a damn, he's going to be a head coach in a year. The defensive coordinators are not getting, for the most part, jobs, head coaching jobs.
By the way, I'm going to play into this. What do the three guys that you just named all have in common?
They're not white.
Right. I mean, I'm going to play into the hypocrisy here. It just seems a little offbeat. Is that look, playing into Brian Flores' assertions is that you went with three defensive guys, all that were black. You never had the inclination to hire a defensive guy anyway. And the one white guy that you hired was the offensive guy that you were going to hire anyway. Like, I don't see the problem with what Flores is saying, because you and I have discussed this for years. This is the truth. I would say, and Marvin Lewis said it today too. I would say 75 to 80% of those interviews with black coordinators are shams. They are there just to fulfill something that is required. And I'm not saying that again, it's about getting in front of the right people, right? So maybe Flores doesn't get it this year, but he gets it next year based on that.
Do you think he ever gets another head coaching job?
Yes, I do.
I do too.
I still think it sucks. I still think that absolutely sucks.
I actually think he's going to get the Texans job.
Do you think – well, here's the next question. If he gets the Texans job, does this all go away?
No.
He says it won't, but –
I think he has a connection with Cesario, the GM.
Sure.
It's a team that needs a leader.
Yep.
Now, they shouldn't have fired David Culley in the first place, but that's
a whole other hired David Culley in the first place.
Different discussion.
Right.
I don't think it goes away. I don't think it should go away. I just don't know what the answer is.
Oh, I absolutely don't think it should go away. I'm just saying, does it? I
don't think it does.
Those are different questions too, right?
No, I don't think it does. But I think the question is, what can you realistically – I mean, look, if the Broncos thing happened in 19, that's asinine. That's just stupid.
Yep.
And completely disrespectful in every capacity. The question is, how do you mandate who you hire? If you're going to incentivize people with draft picks, as I said, I'm not sure if that's good or insulting. Like, I don't know. You're not going to make billionaires hire someone that they don't want to hire. Now, look, are you going to, if Miami's forced to sell and Cleveland's forced to sell, are you going to mandate minority ownership? Can you do that? I assume someone can sell to whoever they want. No, probably not. The NFL probably has to approve ownership.
NFL absolutely has to approve ownership. Can you
Now,
Well, here's the thing. Can you mandate that there is a bid by minority ownership? Sure, you could.
sure, but that doesn't mean. But mandating a bid doesn't mean anything.
No, I get that, but I'm saying you could, like the federal government mandates that there are bids, right?
Yeah.
They mandate small businesses. They mandate that there is affirmative action. If the NFL wants to make a rule that requires that, sure, they could. They're a private business. They can do whatever they want, provided it is not against the law. So do you have to take the best offer? We've seen numerous times that sports clubs have not been sold to the highest bidder for one reason or another.
Right. It's typically for some version of city loyalty or organizational loyalty. I mean, I don't know who in Miami. I mean, Miami, unless it's a guy like Dwayne Wade making the offer or as the front man for it. I mean, who else in the Dolphins?
If you are owning a club, you have to have the 33.3% rule. So you have to put up at least a third of the money. So you're looking at how many?
Yeah, he's not going to have. You're looking at $1 billion.
How many black people have $1.3 billion? How many people have 1.3?
It's not black. I mean, people in general have $1.3 billion. I mean, Robert Johnson.
Well, but we saw how that worked once, right?
Yeah, Jordan.
The Forbes billionaires. I mean, I'm going through all the Forbes billionaires right now. Well, not all of them have pictures. That's not helpful. And that sounds really rude, but I'm doing it that way anyway. But here we go. Kanye West has $1 billion. That's not to say he should own a football club, but he does have $1 billion. Yeah, I mean.
Well, wait. Why do you need a 1/3 ownership? Why do you need to be able to put it in there?
There is
the NFL rule. I don't understand.
Yeah, there is an NFL rule. The NFL requires a controlling owner to hold at least a minimum 30.
It doesn't have to be a controlling owner. Just because you're the face. Look, Derek Jeter is the face of the.
No. There has to be one person that owns 30%, and that person, unlike Derek Jeter, who basically makes the decisions, right? He's the guy that makes the decisions. In the NFL, that's the person that makes the decisions. So he's the governor, for lack of. Does he have to be the face of the franchise? No, of course not. I mean, John Elway is the face of the franchise for the Broncos, right? And he's the general. I think he's the president at this point, but he owns, I think, 1% of that team. So, I mean, but he's the face. So it was put into play because of the Tennessee Titans, where they had, I think, 3 or 4 different family members, and not one of them owned 30%. That's another reason why the Broncos are being sold, because not one of them owns 30%. So let's continue going down these coaching, because I really like the next one. And understanding that they come as a pair, David Ziegler as the general manager and Josh McDaniels as the coach of the Raiders. Look, McDaniels definitely did not do himself any favors with what he did with Indianapolis. Now, if you're Indianapolis, you're kind of happy what he did because he got Frank Reich, right? I mean, that worked out for you. I think McDaniels succeeds here. First of all, I think that team is ripe for doing well. I mean, the Henry Ruggs situation notwithstanding, they're a good play wide receiver away from playoffs, in my opinion. They should have been in there this year.
They were
good. I mean, further along than the one game that they played. I mean, a legitimate contender. I like the way this team is, and I like what they've done. And I think McDaniels, look, I don't believe the old coach got a fair shake. Biscotti, I don't believe got a fair shake, but nobody did. Nobody believed he was going to. I don't think Mayock got a fair shake, but this is the Raiders, and here they are hiring a combination Patriot general manager, head coach, and I like it. I like what they did.
You know what? One mistake is an anomaly. Two is a pattern. And the way he handled Denver when he was the coach there was horrifying. And he did his mea culpa, this and that, and then he goes to Indy and he pulls some. I don't know if he will do well or not. I'm not sure if the interpersonal skills are there.
Hold on, but do you give the same? Did you give the same benefit of the doubt to Bill Belichick because he did he did something worse, didn't he?
He didn't leave Cleveland in the same way that McDaniel led Denver. He was fired from Cleveland for not winning games.
Okay.
McDaniel was fired for about 87 different reasons if you look back.
Well, one of them was Tim Tebow, which was not his choice to begin with.
Understood. But also an inability to relate to anybody.
Okay. Right, his first job. Okay, I get that.
Right, and then
Indy job, I don't give him. The Indy job is Bill Belichick. That's exactly what. Look, Belichick should have been the Jets coach, right? For all intents and purposes, he should have been the Jets.
He should have been coaching Josh Allen.
30 years later, and then one day he shows up and he says, "Nope, I'm good," and he walks away.
Yeah. I don't know. Maybe I'm just not rooting for McDaniel. Maybe that's the right way to put it. Maybe that's the rationale.
Okay.
But, and I get the Patriot thing, just like I get the Bill thing. Like, it makes sense. You hire someone you're comfortable with and that you know. I understand that. Although in this case, it was the coach hiring the GM as opposed to the GM hiring the coach.
And we're going to get to the next one, which is a whole different story of knowledge of person. But we'll get to that in a second. But
McDaniel, look, I don't know. I'm still not convinced he can relate to players. I'm still not. Certain people are made to be coordinators. I'm not sure he's not one of them.
To be fair, I said the same thing of Pete Carroll. I absolutely said the same thing of Pete Carroll. I thought Pete Carroll was, in all intents and purposes, a great coordinator. He went to New England. He didn't do anything, right? Before New England, he was the defensive coordinator for, I believe, San Francisco and for Minnesota. And then he goes to New England and does nothing. And then he comes to the Jets and does nothing. And then he goes to USC and does everything. Then he goes to Seattle and has done everything. So maybe it's a little bit of growth. I guess we'll see.
But also, Carroll is also has such great interpersonal skills.
True, but he may not have had those to start.
I think interpersonal skills are kind of ingrained.
Okay.
I think either you have them or you may be able to develop a little bit, but I think you typically either have them or you don't.
Okay, well, speaking of interpersonal skills, we now move on to Minnesota, where Kwesi Adolfo-Mensah, wow, I think I actually got that one right, who comes over from the Cleveland Browns and before that, the San Francisco 49ers, where he was the he was the director of football research and development, and the coach was one Jim Harbaugh. So because, we should talk about interpersonal skills. That's where we go next. Dude, this can happen. This probably is going to happen.
I think so.
And then I asked the obvious question. Well, I asked two questions. First of all, does this make Minnesota better? I'm not really sure of the answer to that because I think this team only goes as far as Kirk Cousins allows them to go. That's number one. Number two, where the heck does Michigan go now? He had his interview today, which happens to be signing day.
Yeah, which is just a disgrace.
Is it a disgrace or just a big middle finger?
It's a big middle finger.
Yeah.
And which is why I think it's a disgrace.
By the way, to be fair, Michigan took a big middle finger to Harbaugh last year, too, by cutting his salary. So, I mean.
Because Harbaugh has not done a very good job.
I'm just saying, you could have let him go, but you didn't want to. You cut him at the knees. Like, to me.
No, you didn't cut him at. You could have. Look, I think they gave him the option to be like no, or to take a check, take a decrease, because literally he's the highest coach. He was the highest paid coach in football, and was 7-5 every year. He was Brady Hoke.
Okay. All right. So you believe he's taking the middle finger, and so do I, to
taking Minnesota
to go to Minnesota. So first of all, how do you think that works? And second of all, where do you think Michigan goes from here? And I know we're splitting and we're going to the college football, but I think that's important to this discussion.
I don't think he fits in Minnesota. I don't really like the fit. He's a tough, hard-nosed coach, a little bit strange. But his teams that did really well were really defensive-based. Minnesota's defense the last year or two has been a mess. You have Cousins on 1 year at $30 million.
35, actually.
35. You can try and trade it. I mean, it's 1 year, $35 million. And as you've said many times, I'll do anything for a year.
Yep.
I don't know where I don't see. I don't really love the fit, to be honest.
Was there a better fit for him? Is there a fit for Jim Harbaugh in today's NFL?
That's what I don't know. I don't know if the way he runs teams, the teams are not hard. He's not a hard-nosed guy. I mean, he is a very hard-nosed guy. Excuse me. I'm not sure the teams are built that way. I mean, honestly, he strikes me as a coach. You'll laugh for the Steelers.
Well, here's another question for you.
I thought, okay.
What is the difference between Jim Harbaugh and Urban Meyer?
Well, Urban Meyer's won 2 national titles.
No. The type of coach that you're looking at going from college to the pros, right? Both say what you want. Harbaugh's a successful college coach. Even if he didn't meet the pantheon of it, still a successful college coach. Why would Harbaugh succeed and Urban Meyer wouldn't? Or
first of all, Harbaugh is coached in the NFL with a great deal of success.
Correct.
So I think there's a little bit more, and Harbaugh has a GM that he knows and is probably very comfortable with. I think Chicago would have been a better fit for Harbaugh, to be honest. Because he was first of all, he's a defense. Even though he's an offensive, he played quarterback. He's a defensive coach for the most part, but because he's a quarterback, he would work well with Fields. He can work with Fields.
Yep.
And also, since he saw him so much at Ohio State, there's a familiarity. I don't know if his personality fits in today's NFL. I really don't. I don't think it does.
Okay.
I think his brother is much smoother around the edges, and and his brother's been a wonderful coach for years. I think he's better in college where he can kind of control everything.
Yeah, I don't disagree with you at all. I think that is a manner in which to see it. That NFC North, if Rodgers leaves, I mean,
wide open.
It could be anybody, right? I mean, even the Lions could make the playoffs, and I mean,
not next. No, not next.
They could. I mean, look, all they need is a trade for Aaron Rodgers, and they could.
Jared Goff and 3 first-round picks.
A year ago, you wouldn't have said Matthew Stafford would have been traded for Goff and 2 first-round picks, and there he goes.
Yeah.
Now he's playing for the Super Bowl. So the old adage, and we'll talk a little bit about last week's games. The old adage of if you are a cornerback, you are a wide receiver that used to play. You were a guy that used to play wide receiver, but learned that you couldn't catch, so you moved over to defense. My Lord, how true was that this weekend?
Oh, Jack was tart.
You know what? Here's my question for you, though. Let's say Jack Tart makes that catch, okay? And the 49ers go to the Super Bowl, okay? Because that's what would have happened, right? I mean, for all intents and purposes.
I think so.
Are we saying the same thing about Jalen Ramsey today? Because Jalen Ramsey played an awful game. And he also dropped a sure pick six. And the difference between Jacques Hart and Jalen Ramsey is about $16 million. I mean,
yeah,
for all intents and purposes. And this is the second week that Jalen Ramsey has basically screwed the pooch.
Yeah, Mike Evans tore him apart in the seventh.
And it was only Mike Evans. Like, there was no Antonio Brown. There was no Chris Godwin. There was Mike Evans and Mike Evans and Mike Evans. And you knew exactly where the ball was going to go 85 to 90% of the time. And Jalen Ramsey was awful.
Yes.
I cannot – so being a Jets fan, there are very few players that I can say we had that were the best of the best, right? I mean, for all intents and purposes, right? We had Gastineau for a little bit. We had Klecko. I mean, we had Don Maynard. We had Joe Namath for a year. Like, all these guys. How many shutdown corners have you seen in your lifetime? True shutdown corners.
Sorry, my computer was dying, so I had to move to the bed.
So I want first define what you believe is a shutdown corner. Now, Gary and I talked about this on this show. Define because he used the term Jalen Ramsey and shutdown corner. And I'm incredulous that Jalen Ramsey is in that conversation right now. Maybe the first and second year, but certainly not today. What is shutdown corner to you?
Someone you can leave on an island that can control, for all intents and purposes, negate number one wideout.
Okay. I'll go even a further point. You don't even look at that side. That's it. Like, that side of the field where that player is. So if it's Mike Evans and Jalen Ramsey is on Mike Evans, Tom Brady is not even looking at Mike Evans the rest of the game. He's done. He's off. He may get one pass the entire game because you're not throwing against him. I think you and I have seen 3 to 4 shutdown corners in our lives. Deion's the best shutdown corner we've ever seen.
Yes.
I don't think there's any question the athleticism that Deion had as a cornerback is kind of unmatched. I don't think there's anybody there. Rod Woodson, when he played cornerback, shutdown corner, right? I think we're a little too young for Ronnie Lott as a corner.
Ronnie Lott was a safety.
But he played corner first, actually. And
I don't even remember that.
He made all-pro as a corner.
I just remember.
And I think Revis is 4. Mm-hmm. And other than that, I can't – right now, I don't think there is one in the NFL. I mean, I'd be hard-pressed to think of it. I mean, Quadri Diggs is not a shutdown corner. He has
Trayvon Diggs.
11 interceptions, but obviously he got 11 balls thrown to him if he got 11 interceptions. I mean, the shutdown corners also don't get a lot of interceptions because they just don't have the balls thrown. And so when Gary or other people talk to me about Jalen Ramsey being a shutdown corner, I think it's easier to throw on the Rams than it is to run on the Rams right now. And so I'm looking forward to seeing Joe Mixon put up maybe 40 yards, but those wide receivers, I think that's going to be – and we'll talk more about this next week, but I think that's going to be a problem. I think unless the Rams really get a lot of pressure on the Bengals, I think you're going to see major throwing yards in this game. I mean,
I agree. I think both quarterbacks are going to be able to be effective throwing the ball. I mean, look, I worry about Cincy. Again, we'll talk about this next week. I worry about Cincy's offensive line. But I don't see. I agree. I think both teams will throw the ball pretty
You
successfully.
feel bad for the two tight ends, right? I mean, CJ
Usama.
Usama and Tyler Higbee hopefully both will be able to play in the game because they are big parts of that offense and
Yep.
are hopefully going to be part of that. Okay. I have only 5 more minutes, so I will let you go first, and then I can parse on to the back end.
I don't got too. I really. I'll be honest. I feel drained. Just kind of reading all this stuff over the last 24 hours. I really don't have too much to say. I feel sad listening to all this. I feel exhausted. Now, again, is this something that we've mentioned in passing things along these lines over the last couple of years, but never really delved? Should we have been more proactive? What I wonder is, should we have been not? And again, look, we host a podcast, but should we have been more proactive in saying that in being, I always talk about, being reactive versus proactive. Should we have been more proactive in kind of calling this out and saying that this is ridiculous? Or maybe we have to a degree that Eric Bieniemy doesn't have a job, or Chris Richard would have been my choice in Dallas, didn't have a job, didn't get a head coaching job, or so on and so forth. I don't know. By the way,
Do you see it that look? My mom and I have had difficulties over the years,
no.
but she did pay me the ultimate compliment when I was a kid, and she said to me, "Sean, your best friends when you get your group together are kind of like the United Nations. Part of you just doesn't see the difference between you and anybody else." And maybe that bolds for why yes, we've called out why Chris Richard hasn't gotten a job. We've asked why Eric Bieniemy hasn't got a job. And granted, you could look at it as if that was a thing that we look at as of color. But maybe we're just looking at it as he was the best guy. I mean, I got to tell you, I don't look at. I had to look up whether Patrick Graham was black or white. I didn't know the answer to that question, and I looked it up because I wanted to make sure before I said, "Hey, what do the other three guys have in common?" that they actually did have it in common. But if Patrick Graham was the best guy for the job, if Brian Flores was the best guy for the job, I've taken the Jets to task 1,000 times over the wrong guys for the job. I mean, Rich Kotite was the wrong guy for the job. I mean, in retrospect, he was even worse than I thought at the time. But I mean, you've taken David Gettleman to task. You've taken Ben McAdoo to task. When they're the wrong guys for the job, I don't care if they're black, white, Indian, Mexican, or Latino, or any other race, or creed, or ethnicity. I said this at the beginning of the podcast. I'll say it again. If you are the most talented person for the job, I don't care who you are. You're the most talented. If you're female and you're the most talented person for the job, you should have that job. Now that job comes with a lot, right? So if you're saying, is a female the most talent, but can the female go into a men's locker room and deal with it? If the female can't do that, then that's part of the job. That's not to say she can't, but that is part of the job. Okay, 2 things before we go. Last week we talked about Clark Gillies. I'll hit again. Jeff Innes passed away 2 days ago. Submariner for the Mets in the 1980s. And yeah, you're a Yankees fan. That's why you don't know who Jeff Innes is. One of the more likable guys on the Mets team in the late 80s. And again, 61 years old, Seth.
we're getting there.
We're getting there. And the second thing is, and I just saw this, the NCAA earned $1.15 billion with a B dollars in 2021 after earning $800 million in 2020 due to the pandemic. That's almost the same as they earned in 2019 before the pandemic. I don't ever want to hear that an athlete does not deserve to get money. Ever. Ever. I don't want to hear that schools do not have enough money to support their teams. Ever. $1.15 billion feeds a lot of people in a dining hall. And it gets a lot of buses. If you got to tell me that the women's hockey team has to take a bus, as long as the men's hockey team takes a bus, they should both be taking buses. I don't care.
Agreed.
Don't want to hear it ever again.
Just thinking, based off you asked me a question on on Michigan, there is a name that I just kind of thought of.
John Harbaugh. Pete Carroll? Why not?
He's kind of run his course in Seattle.
Yeah.
He's got credentials.
I'll tell you what, I work for a Michigan booster. So I'll run it up the flagpole and I'll see what he says. And maybe
get back to me. Let me know.
I will. All right, guys. For Seth Kamens, who's over there, I'm Sean Palmer, Seth and Sean Sports Radio here on StreamYard. Thanks so much for joining. Next week, we'll have our Super Bowl preview. And I promise we will talk a little college basketball, which we promised to do this week. And neither one of us shed any light on that. So talk to you guys next week. Have a good one.